M20 is a stunningly good-looking fat tyre moped-style e-bike with room for dual batteries, a powerful 750-watt motor and rugged frame, suitable for somewhat rough terrain. It's a budget Super73, basically. It's available now from geekbuying.com for around $1,300 at the time of review. So thank you to Geek Buying for providing the sample today. Let's find out if this is the right fat tyre e-bike for you. I'm James Bruce. You're watching MakeUseOf.com reviews. Now, there are two models available with a single 624 watt-hour battery as we have here, and a dual battery option, which is going to double your range. They claim up to 150 kilometers on dual battery, so 75 kilometers with just the one, although we'll talk more about that later. If you get the single battery model, you'll also get a little hard storage case, and this is where the second battery would have gone. Now, I'd like to say it's a nice value-add inclusion, but it's kind of essential, because without this battery, you'll find a very ugly mounting point where the frame has actually been flattened with some bolt holes. It's not a huge deal. I don't see myself ever wanting to not have this bag fitted, but it's something to keep in mind because the aesthetics are kind of ruined a little without this. It would have been nice to have the option for a second seat, perhaps, so you could ride doubles, but it is what it is. Speaking of design, overall, it's a really good-looking, chunky framed moped-style bike with a nice handle on the back here. And it weighs a massive 34 kilograms. Front to back, it's 1.6 meters or 65 inches and 1.14 meters or 45 inches tall with the fixed height handlebar. Though I will just say that the green color is more of a dark metallic green rather than an army green as I was expecting. And while the overall build quality is superb, there's some very small bits that let it down, like these exposed lighting cables. Also, on the topic of lights, A, there's two of them on the front for some reason, and B, you can't fully turn them off. The on-off button over here just turns on and off the main headlights, but there's also some small LED bars in there which stay on. Kind of annoying, but it's not a huge battery drain. Other than that, you'll find pretty standard components with some Kenda, fat tyres, 4x20 inches, Shimano 7-speed derailleur, Wuxing 160mm mechanical disc brakes and dual suspension with front hydraulic adjustable and rear air shock. Now, like most Chinese import e-bikes, the Engwe M20 comes fitted with an accelerator, which is nice and completely illegal in the UK where I am and throughout Europe, I believe. Of course, the motor size of 750 watts is also illegal. Anything above 250 watts is technically a motorbike and needs to be licensed, but realistically, it's got pedals, it's an e-bike. No one cares, no one will know. Obviously, I'm not condoning breaking the law, but ethically it's okay to break stupid laws, and there were no questions asked on import. In the US, this is a Class 3 e-bike, if that's relevant to your locality. More importantly than that then, how's the ride? On just standard road and gravel paths, it's a pleasure to sit on, with the dual suspension offering a relatively comfy experience, although the rear shock absorber doesn't feel like it's doing much. This big wide seat also helps. You aren't going to be saddled with the usual pain of a bike seat up your bum, but it's not as nice as some actual motorbike seats. Notice I emphasized sit on though. The fixed height, low seat, and close to the rear position means it's not so comfy to actually pedal on, which is, yes, admittedly a bit of an annoyance on a supposedly pedal bike. To be honest, even on the lowest PAS setting, once the motor kicked in, I was made to feel entirely unnecessary. This has to be the first e-bike where it feels like the bike is trying to tell me, just let me take over, don't worry about it, mate. Unfortunately, taking it properly off-road, it feels less safe, mainly because of the seat position being so far back. Going up steep hills was pretty terrifying at times because I constantly felt a sense of falling off the back. Engwe states 10-degree slopes, and that sounds about right, nothing too steep. That said, on light inclines and gravel, the fat tyres give really good traction, and you can corner easily. Although the 750 watts with 1,000 watt peak motor power is good, remember it's a heavy bike and power ratings alone don't tell the whole story. Engwe states 45 kilometers an hour or 27 miles an hour maximum speed, and I would agree that on a good flat surface that's certainly possible, although I didn't manage to quite hit that given my weight. And although you can get good speeds, the torque doesn't quite feel as high as I would have liked. So even though it has power, it's not always there when you need it. Using the pedal assist felt surprisingly laggy to get started, but even though it's a cadence sensor, the acceleration is curved, so it doesn't just all whack on at once. It's sort of a smooth ramp up, but definitely laggy. This is kind of good for safety. I can tell you that even lower power motors can be dangerous when they kick in at full power, just as soon as the sensor sort of triggers and works out, oh yes, they're pedaling now. That said, it does still ramp up once started because it's not a torque sensor. If you're only putting in a little effort into the pedals, it won't stay at a little input. It will start low and then push through to full power within a few seconds, regardless of how little you're pedaling. And that's because a cadence sensor only knows you're moving forward. It doesn't know the amount of effort that you're putting in. And on the downside, again, it's a bit laggy and it'll stay on for a bit longer than I was comfortable with. Seconds after you stop pedaling, it'll keep the motor power going. So I'd say the safety aspect is sort of midway between a basic cadence sensor that just initiates all that power at once and a torque sensor which scales appropriately with your effort. It is still a cadence sensor, but one that ramps up smoothly, albeit with quite a lag. It's also a full twist throttle rather than the usual half twist or just a button or a lever. And that can be dangerous. It completely ran away with me the first time I was pushing it around, so do be careful there. There is a good bit of dead zone on the throttle as well, with at least 2 or 3 zones of speed control. Though it's not a perfectly smooth acceleration graph, it does feel like it's kicking into a higher gear. However, unlike most e-bikes I've tried, you're able to use the accelerator while pedaling. So you can get a really fast start if you time it right by turning the throttle and then cycling without having to wait for the cadence sensor to kick in. A lot of e-bikes throttles just don't work if you're pedaling, or even worse, don't work if you're on a certain PAS level. You need to be in level 0 for the throttle to do anything. Not so with this. Regardless of the PAS level you're in, it's always on and working, which makes riding so easy. In terms of range then, they claim 75 kilometers on PAS 1, but remember that's super easy terrain and a lightweight, usually 65 kilogram rider. So at just over 100 kilos and having to go up and down a lot of hills here, I got nowhere near that range off-road, more like 20 kilometers. But on-road, I had a much better performance and got about 30 kilometers. Of course, you have the option for a dual battery if you need that sort of range, but obviously you need to take their range claims as laboratory conditions and not likely to apply to your individual use case. As for braking, not fantastic. It feels a little bit underrated for the overall weight of the bike, and I wasn't easily able to stop downhill. But they do feature motor cutoff sensors, so that helps to slow you down when needed. So should you buy the Engwe M20? It's definitely a bike that prioritizes style over substance, and I hesitate to even call it a pedal bike. It leans much heavier into the electric all-terrain moped category, and on mostly fat rides, it is a dream for anyone who doesn't particularly want to cycle. As long as you're not going too far that you really need to rely on a heavy amount of pedaling, as long as you're not trying to really push it up off-road massive hills, it's a very pleasurable, fun, good-looking e-bike with plenty of power and potentially good range if you buy the dual battery model. But more importantly, at $1,300, it's fantastic value. It's not going to be for the serious e-bike enthusiast. There are probably too many compromises, nor would I recommend it as your daily commuting ride. But as something relatively cheap to ride on the weekends, possibly a bit of off-roading, a bit off the beaten path anyway, emphasis on the riding and less on the pedaling is good, really good, and a lot of fun. Anyway, thanks to Geek Buying for sending this over for review. Link in the description where you can buy it. Thanks to you for watching, and hit like if you found this review helpful. If not, or if you just want to chat, let me know in the comments. And be sure to subscribe for more reviews of the latest tech, coolest gadgets, and more from all of us over at makeuseof.com. Until next time.